Please gather toward this side. Welcome to the Metropolitan Museum. My name is Janice. I am a graduate student at the School of Visual Arts, and I'm studying for my master's in teaching. Well, I was walking around the museum a couple of weeks ago trying to decide which paintings I wanted to talk to you all about. And I was looking at all the big famous mural paintings when I came around this corner, and I totally stopped right here. And I was just fascinated by these three pieces. And I was wondering if anybody would happen to see the same thing that I saw in these. What captured you so much? Any ideas? What's capturing you, really?
The light.
Excellent. Yes, totally. Yeah, it's so obvious. This painting here is by Henry Lehmann. He's German, studied in France, student of Eng from 1840. And I just love the way we can see, he allows us to see his thinking. We can see the ground of the painting and the large brush strokes that he used to lay out the figure in. And the lighting, you can see how it brings us around in like a circular composition, traveling from the top of her head, down the curve of her back up her unfinished leg, to her head again. And he uses that ground in a technique we call scumbling. It's very thick, light paint that describes the light on the side of her, and it sort of just kind of lets the paint sort of fall off the brush as he gets down here. He uses the canvas to create that shadow. It's very common in oil painting technique that the lights are opaque and the shadows are translucent. This is what really creates the depth of a painting. And so another thing is that he uses a sense of the catch light on that elbow, and you can see it repeating there on the breast. That sort of redder little highlight from the light source that's somewhat off the painting. But it does not compete with the main light of the painting on her back. So the thing about these reflected lights is it's redder in tone, but it's not as high in value. It's much darker. I think this is something that students really struggle with, to get their reflected lights to stay in place. So again, it's way warmer, which usually comes forward, but it's so dark in tone that it stays back. And I really thought it was really nice to put some effect in there. In contrast to that, this next painting does not use any reflected light like that. It's very similar in style, though. This is also another student of Eng. This is Jean Hippolyte Flandin. And this is a male nude seen from behind. And it's probably, this is actually only attributed to him. It's probably, an academic study painting, from the school days. And it's most likely the spot where nobody else wanted to sit, because it's mostly in shadow, and it's hard to paint the shadows. It's hard because there's so much more definition in the light side, and the shadows are flat. Again, that's another contrast between light and shadow. We can't talk about lights without talking about shadows. Without the two working together, neither can exist. So we also see another type of shadow, which is this cast shadow down by his feet, that really anchoring him to the ground. He is standing there. And you can see that also in the redness of his feet as well. It's really like he's putting weight on those feet. There's more red and there's more blood and strain going on those feet. Our eye travels down in this sort of nice arc that's traveling with the figure. And you can see that foot is also directly under his head. That is his weight-bearing leg. Now I know most of you people being artists, you probably know about this word. Can anybody tell me what that word is called for this type of pose? Contrapposto, correct. So you can see all the tension is really happening in that hip, which is right center of the composition. And we know that is actually, to me, that is our highest highlight. It's not very high, but you really feel that's where all the stress is in that pose, and it brings us right to the center of the painting. The last thing I would say about this painting that's really attracting me is the flip between light on dark and dark on light. You see it, of course, on the light side here on the right, where he is light against dark. But up by his shoulder, he becomes dark against light. That's a really nice play for your eye to make those different connections. It's very similar to this painting here, where he does this contrasting of light on dark and dark on light. This one is by Charles Marie Boutin. He was actually a student of David. You see the light on dark of the skylight and the dark on light of the columns against that back wall. And I love the repetitive shapes of those rectangles going across the top, down some vertical, and also the rectangles of the perspective lines leading us right into the center of the painting. You also have another nice contrast in this lighting of warm, thick, painterly strokes of the walls versus the nice, cool landscape that's going on in the background, how that really recedes and gives us a huge sense of depth. It's got a nice, sort of a spotlight composition, I would call it. So here we're looking at kind of a circular. This is more a nice linear arc. And here we're looking at this kind of spotlight thing happening. So I would say with all of these paintings, they all share a simple, singularly subject-focused painting with really dramatic, strong lighting. What I'd like you to take away from this is that when you're walking around the museums, don't just stop at the big, huge murals that everybody else looks at, because it's these little sort of unknown artists that have a huge amount to teach us as well. So I would really like to thank you for your attention. Does anybody have any questions as well? Or any comments? So I thank you again for your time and attention, and enjoy the rest of your stay at the Metropolitan.